For years, video game adaptations were cursed. Not literally, but it sure felt that way. They were clunky, soulless, stripped of the emotional depth that made the games unforgettable. But then came The Last of Us, and suddenly, the curse didn't just break, it shattered. This wasn't just a good adaptation, it was a good story, one that honored its source material while becoming something new. So, how did The Last of Us succeed where so many others failed? And what does it mean for the future of game to screen storytelling? Let's talk about the curse. For decades, video game adaptations were synonymous with disappointment. Super Mario Bros. 1993 was chaotic. Assassin's Creed was visually rich but emotionally hollow. Resident Evil became a franchise, but not one fans recognized. The problem wasn't just bad writing, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of what games are. Studios treated them like comic books or novels, stories to be extracted and repackaged. But games aren't just stories, they're experiences. They're emotional journeys shaped by player agency, immersion, and time. And when you strip that away, you're left with something that looks familiar but feels empty. Adaptation theory tells us that fidelity isn't everything. Linda Hutcheon calls adaptation repetition without replication. It's not about copying, it's about translating. The Last of Us understood that. It didn't just recreate scenes from the game, it reimagined them, expanded them, made them cinematic without losing their soul. Bill and Frank's episode is a perfect example. In the game, their story is tragic and brief. In the show, it's tender, expansive, and deeply human. That's not betrayal. That's transformation. And it's what makes the adaptation feel alive. What The Last of Us preserved wasn't just plot. It was emotional fidelity, Joel's grief, Ellie's rage, the slow, painful bond between them. The show didn't rush it. It lingered. It gave us silence, tension, and vulnerability. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey didn't just play the characters, they inhabited them. And that's what made longtime fans feel seen, and newcomers feel invested. It wasn't just a story about survival, it was a story about love and loss, and the impossible choices we make when those collide. The Last of Us didn't just succeed, it changed the game. It proved that video game adaptations could be prestigious television, that they could win awards, spark discourse, and move audiences. And it wasn't alone. Arcane, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, even Castlevania found critical acclaim, but The Last of Us did something deeper. It bridged the gap between gamer and non-gamer. It made the story accessible without diluting its complexity. Studios are paying attention. Now we're seeing adaptations of God of War, Fallout, Ghost of Tsushima. The curse is broken, but the challenge remains. Can they replicate the emotional depth, or will they fall back into spectacle? So what comes next? If The Last of Us is the blueprint, then future adaptations need to ask, what is this story really about? Not just what happens, but what it means. Games are intimate, they're slow, they're messy. Adaptations need to embrace that, to resist the urge to simplify, to honor the emotional architecture that players built over hours of gameplay. Because when you get it right, like The Last of Us did, you don't just adapt a game, you elevate it. The video game adaptation curse wasn't just about bad movies, it was about misunderstanding the medium, The Last of Us broke that curse not by copying the game, but by listening to it, feeling it, translating its soul into a new language. And in doing so, it didn't just tell a story, it told our story of grief, of love, of survival. The curse is dead. Long live the adaptation. And may the next one be just as brave.